We're live here. Welcome back to Mav Sports Take. This is episode 18, your weekly podcast for sports, business, and more. We've seen a lot of adversity through the 2020 season so far, 2020 year in general, and tonight we are going unmuzzled to talk about college football, pro football, sports as a business with me, Ryan Roberts, at Rise and Draft on Twitter, and at Mav_sports, Mr. David Turner. David, I know health isn't the best in the world right now, my friend, but appreciate you being back with us again. The 18th episode, if you could believe it, tonight.
I know. Doing it from the couch again, y'all. Going to probably be here for the next 6 or 7 weeks, but we're still on here having a ball, having a fun time, and I can't wait for tonight. I think we're bringing another exciting episode to the marketplace, something that people can tune in, learn from, listen to, and get some good takeaways from.
Absolutely. And tonight we are going to start this episode. We're going to be joined by Mr. Keon Johnson, who is a PR executive. And we're going to talk about how the professional sports teams tackle the tough subjects. And with the coaching carousel already in full swing, how the interview process is broken down and how it can be fixed later on. After we get done with Mr. Keon, we also have some great topics: NFL draft, college football, NFL. We're covering it all. Before we do, are you a college player wondering how the inner workings to a college scouting department work? Are you an agent that wonders how a player gets evaluated? Are you an aspiring scout that would like to peek into a college scouting department? Join us on Friday Night Scout School this week to learn the inner workings of the college football scouting department. We'll be going over how to do a college campus call, what questions you should be asking, how a body type of player, how to dig into the injuries and character. Don't miss your opportunity to learn about a college scouting department. Sign up today at NFLDraftBible.com this Friday, 9 o'clock Eastern time. Inviting our guest to the show tonight. Got Mr. Keon Johnson from a small town in Pittsburgh, California, played for football at high school and junior college, was injured, and found a different way to stay involved with sports. Went on to attend Grambling State University, which he's repping tonight on the shirt if you are live with us now, where he found his love for communications, majoring in public relations. After graduating from Grambling State, he accepted an internship with the Houston Texans. He remained with the Texans for 2 years and then moved on to the San Francisco 49ers within their public relations department. Spent another 2 years out there in San Fran, then moved to Miami to work with the Florida Panthers for a season and was able to come back to San Francisco for his second stint with the 49ers. From there, he joined the PR teams with the Golden State Warriors and the Oakland, now Las Vegas Raiders. Keon also works in teams with Ian Williams, Daniel Felds, and Applied Silver to help the sports world to be a safer and cleaner place by helping to stop the spread of dangerous pathogens and infections with Silver Clean products. Keon, I think that was my best intro in the world. That was way better than David's, if I must say so. Welcome to the show.
That was like the cleanest ever.
Hey man, that was really solid, man. I listen to this. I listen and watch this show like every week, man. So I'm really excited to be here. Definitely excited to talk to you guys and kind of give a lot of people a different take on different avenues in sports that you don't really hear about as much, but it plays a very vital role in teams and what they plan on doing and how they plan on attacking different scenarios.
Well, absolutely. And I was really excited, and I know David was too, because that perspective is one that we haven't talked about a ton so far in the podcast history. So wanted to highlight a little bit about yourself to start your career path and give us just a framework of how you've got into the work and that you do now in the public relations field.
Okay. So yeah, basically, man, in college, I was actually going to do advertising. I went into college to do advertising, and then once our advertising department folded, one of my mentors said, "Hey, you're a very good communicator. Why don't you try public relations?" I didn't even know what it was, to be honest with you. I was like, I don't know what that is. So was like, well, let me give it a try. And I got in there and I learned it. It was a lot to do with writing, speaking to people, and just kind of getting the word out. And I found that it was another way to kind of stay into sports. And sports is something that I've done pretty much my entire life. So I was able to join in with the Grambling State football team. Eddie Robinson, legendary coach Eddie Robinson's last couple of years and into Doug Williams' years. So we had a pretty good time out there. So doing that after college, I just kind of submitted my resume to 30. It was 32 teams at that time, NFL, because the Texans had just made their first. They were going into their first year at the time I was graduating.
Starting to show your age a little.
Yeah, you know about that, Dave.
Your age is peeking in.
Yeah, so went there, and so I got contacted by literally one team out of all the NFL teams, all the NBA teams and Major League Baseball. One team called me back, and that was the Texans. And so I did the interview, got in, and it just kind of started moving from there. I was always told, man, once you get your foot in the door, man, don't let that door close. Just keep it open and keep moving. So that's what I did.
Keon, yeah. I wanted to ask you about your stint there at Grambling State, because I know there's a lot of people that are really excited. Obviously, Deion Sanders is now a part of the HBCU lineage down there. How excited are you as an alum of an HBCU, historically Black college and university, and just in general, kind of taking a step back and thinking about what great things that branch of college football and athletics can do now that somebody like Deion Sanders is kind of at the forefront and sort of a symbol for what maybe the potential could be over there?
Yeah, I think it was great, not only for HBCUs in general, but just for the SWAC conference, for Grambling. I think it's going to do a lot for Grambling, because now every time Grambling plays Jackson State, those are big eyes on that. Game, and there are going to be a lot of scouts coming out to those games now, because I think Deion Sanders assembled a coaching staff that has I want to say 80-something combined years of NFL experience. With that comes, tons of relationships that those guys have built, that they're going to bring their guys in to watch their team, but not only their team, they're going to watch every team in the SWAC. So you getting eyes on that conference and on those games and on those players that probably necessarily wasn't on them before. So Deion Sanders coming to Jackson State is actually a big thing. I mean, I'm not going to be rooting for Jackson State, but but I think it's a great thing. It's exciting for us all.
So Key, really, real quick, so everybody, full disclosure, Key and I played high school football together at De La Salle High School, and we've known each other for a long time. And
I'm sorry to hear that.
Well, no, it's really
championships.
That's all we gotta say. Championships.
I meant playing with David, not playing at De La Salle.
Oh, don't worry, I didn't play much. So I was kind of the guy on the sidelines. But that being said, I used to see Key in the press boxes, and it was kind of funny how both of us found ways to stay involved in sports even after our playing days were up, and how much this game has meant to us. This field, though, that Key took, this road that Keon took, I didn't know much about, and I still can say I'm a novice. And even though I've worked with teams, and I know the TBR departments do a lot of good for the branding of the organization and protecting of the organization in certain times, but Key, this field is not a lot of people are familiar with it. Can you explain what it means to be part of a PR team for an organization?
Yeah, so I look at it in this way. It's basically you're a customer service rep for everybody in the organization. That goes from players, that goes from front office staff, that goes from the media who's covering the team, to cheerleaders, everybody in the organization. whenever they have something going on, you're the person that's pitching it out. So basically, you're the person that's going and you're talking to the media and you're telling them, hey, this is off the field. This player has this event going on. We think it'd be great for you guys to cover it. So, and it's actually building a relationship between that media person, whoever it is, a reporter, and this player. So it's all about building relationships and getting that relationship established. And once that relationship is established, you kind of nurture it and build it forward. That goes with like anything that's going on. So any like type of crisis management that happens, the PR team is the people that go in and they, kind of, help bring it out to the forefront and help it to be seen in a better light, hopefully, than what it is. So it's a lot of basically talking to this person, and getting the right word out and getting the right message out to the public.
So when you're saying that, it's like, I know there's curveballs thrown at you, not only the set events, but there's curveballs or last minute things, or maybe something happens that a player or someone else from the organization, a coach or something does that maybe the organization wasn't aware of right away. Right.
Mm-hmm.
How does that get handled?
That gets handled. Basically when we do have events like that to take place, there's, we have to hit it head on. But we don't have to have all the answers at that time. So we can go out and like, we're looking into this. I mean, you might hear a lot of that, we're looking into this. We can't comment on it right now. And it's always okay not to comment on something at that point, but just address it later. But because you don't want to say something, or you don't want to have anybody else say something that's incorrect, or that can be seen in a negative way, or you didn't want to say it that way. So you kind of want to just regroup, go back to your team, and you guys talk about it. You talk to the person that was involved in it, and make sure everybody gets the story straight, or exactly what happened. Because you always got to be truthful, and so that's the message that you want to put out. I mean, sometimes you don't want to put everything out. You just you put out what you think is important and what needs to be said, and then you move on. A lot of the times, that's another thing you got to do, is just you face it and then you move on.
And Keon, I know this isn't like public relations isn't just specific to sports, but when we're talking about in the sports world, what are some of the challenges to working in the field, and what overall would you say is the importance of public relations in the sports arena, the sports spectrum in general?
It's a very, very, very important thing to have a good PR team behind you, because like you said, with different things that pop up, I mean, if you don't have the right people there, it can get blown out of proportion, and this little story can become a huge story that you did not want to get out, or that if it did get out, it's not the way you want it. And so now you're going to have to do more crisis management type work on stuff that was something that could have been handled really easily with a no comment right now, and then you go back and you regroup and you get the right message out. And then sometimes you got rogue people that that kind of go out on a limb and they do things and you're kind of stuck like, oh, okay, well, let me figure out what's going on. I know there's some cases and some things that I've heard about where some person may have gotten fired, and they didn't even know that they had gotten fired until they're in the middle of a press conference or something, and and the reporters are asking them, they just say, oh, I just got a tweet that this happened, and now the person that happened to, had nothing to do, so was not aware of it. So it just kind of goes. It's funny. So you gotta kind of like take that in, and kind of as a PR person, you have to figure out how are we going to make this okay. So then so different things you have to do. I don't know what happened. I don't know if that was even like real, but that's just some stories that I've heard going on in the PR world in sports, because it's so fast paced and things are moving so quickly that you got to be aware of everything, and some things may pass you by, and some things may go past your team and you didn't know, and then the media finds out first, and that's one thing that you kind of don't want to happen. That's you always want to be on top of everything, so you always have to have an open line of communication between the organizations, between everybody.
And I'm kind of curious, Keon, I'm just trying to like picture it in my mind. So like in a traditional public relations team that you're a part of, how many people are working closely to make those types of decisions? Because it seems like, obviously you guys need to, in a lot of instances, really come up with some good, a good thorough plan in a very short amount of time.
Yeah. So it's probably, I'd say each team has about four to five people on their PR staff, and then on game day they bring in consultants as well. So they bring in another about 4 or 5 in this COVID area right now. I mean, it's probably like 2 or 3 extra people, because you're not having fans in the stands, you're not having as much media attending because the social distancing and all that type of stuff. So it's a right now it's a lot smaller, but generally on a game day, you'll probably have like 10 people there.
Gotcha.
Now, you've worked for several organizations in different sports. So can you just give our audience a little bit of a comparison between the organizations, how things are handled, as well as like maybe differences in between the sports?
Yeah, I mean, the differences are, just the sports itself. Like football is different from basketball. So, the stories are pretty much going to be what these players are doing, like during a game. Okay. So what these players are doing. So you want to try to capture each story and each way. So I'll say, for example, in basketball. Okay. So like you can do so many different, it's kind of hard to kind of differentiate, because they, just the sports itself, but both of them really, you're servicing the media. They're, whatever they want. I mean, if they need stats, if they need a quote, if they need to get an interview with Steph Curry or Draymond Green or something like that, it's your job to kind of set that up. So you go and you kind of prep the player on what they want, what the media wants to talk about, or that media member wants to talk about. And then you go and you set up the interview. Once he's fine with it, bring him over. They do the interview. A lot of times you have to record it, because you want to make sure it's accurate. So me or somebody else in the PR staff will record the interview, and then we'll go and transcribe it. And once it's transcribed, then we can push it out to the rest of the media. And then that just kind of, if you ever read stories, or you see stories on ESPN or whatever, any type of thing, and if it's all like, this person said this, well, that's what our job is, to get that quote so they can put it in their story to fill it out.
Gotcha. And Keon, when we're talking about, this is kind of like a more wide scope, how do teams make mistakes in the public relations world? Like, what are some things that teams do wrong to kind of, paint a bad picture of their organization potentially?
To be honest with you, I have been lucky. All the teams that I've ever worked for and all the teams that I've ever been a part of have had great PR staffs. I mean, starting from the Houston Texans with Tony Wiley to over at the 49ers. I was with Kirk Reynolds. These are and with the Warriors, it's Ray Ritter. These guys have been around for 25, 30 years plus, you know, so they know exactly, you know, the right things to do. And, you know, I can't think of any too many negative things that, you know, a PR department has done off the top of my head to kind of to answer that question. But, you know, the thing about it is if you don't hear anything negative, they're doing a good job. So I haven't heard, you know. So that's the thing.
Hey, this is a completely unmuzzled show, so we need an example of where maybe you might not have been part of this organization that messed up, but you've seen an organization. This ain't about skating the line and sitting on the fence line. You got to give us something that is a effed up situation that you were like, they completely messed this up. That's
David
what
said,
that's what people expect when they turn into Mavericks. You're playing the political line. This ain't the political line. This is Mavs.
Oh man, I'm telling you, I'm giving you the unmuzzled truth, man. I'm telling you what I don't like to speak on other people's stuff that I don't know firsthand. You know,
you saw a story, you saw something that you're like, man, that got messed up. They didn't handle that right. That's what our people want to know. Bring the heat.
You know what? I'm gonna just say no comment to that one because, like I said, I don't know that. I don't know that specifically, so I can't comment on that. I'm sorry if I can't give you no dirt, man. But that's just what I know. Like I said, man, the people I talk about, the people that I've been around and that I've worked with, and like I said, all of them are like top of the line, man. So it's tough, and I wish I kind of did have that kind of dirt to spew, but I don't.
Don't let David Turner bully you, Keon. He said that you guys went to school together, right? It's like we're back in high school and he's trying to bully you a little bit to get some information out of you, David. Grow up, man.
I'm never as a bully. I just make it happen. But you know, that being said, how do players, and there's been plenty of players, so you better have an example here. How do players mess up in their PR, and what's an example that we can learn from here tonight where you're like, this dude completely effed this up? And I'll say this right now. It's breaking news right now. Des Bryant, to me, just pulled a oopsie because Des Bryant got pulled from warmups. He's not playing tonight because he got a positive COVID test, and he went right to Twitter and he threw up a tweet saying, this is WTF. You know, how are they going to pull me and get me a positive when I'm supposed to be playing tonight? I mean,
that's one of those things that, like, I was given that other example about, like, it just happened at that point. So right now the team is probably at the game. They're probably getting ready to kick off. I think it starts at 5:00 or 5
coming
Pacific?
Up in 4 minutes.
Yeah. So they're probably concentrating on that game. I'm sure that they've seen it, but and I'm sure that they're going to talk to Des Bryant about that situation, about like, hey, you know, you can't do those type of things. It puts us in a bad light now that we can't really focus on the game. We gotta deal with this. But what they're going to do is what I think they are going to do is they'll say, oh yeah, we are aware of the situation. We're going to handle it in-house. Things like that. That way it's not going to, you know, they'll talk to Des or they'll do whatever they need to do to him. But hopefully it won't go public, like too much more public than, you know, what it is now.
Man, it was just on, you know, Fox's with this Twitter world. They blew it up.
With this Twitter world, it's Fox so hard, man.
I mean, they already blew it up. It's instantaneous.
It's boom. You push send, it's right there. So another one, what's his name? He's on the Bucks now. Antonio Bryant. He was another one that kind of like he goes off. He goes off, and they had to talk to him. Some players are like so good that they're going to sweep it under the rug or let him do what he needs to do. And then if something bigger happens to him, they're going to bring that back up to him. So, we just kind of tell the players every year we do a media session with the players, like before the season starts, to kind of give them like examples, like, look, don't do this, don't do that, be respectful of the media. These guys can do two things. They can be with you, or they can be against you, so just kind of stay. You want to tote that line of, you guys are all professionals, so act accordingly. And again, some of these players are very young, man, and they want to, they think that they can, do whatever they want, and in a sense they can, but it's going to come with consequences. And a lot of those consequences we have to deal with, but not only us, it's going to be them as well.
Mm-hmm. And Keon, that kind of brings me a little bit. You already answered it to a degree, but I was wondering about. You mentioned, before the season, you might have a sit down, like, how you guys reflect the organization. I'm sure you have those talks constantly. Yeah. Is there anything separate where, like, if a Antonio Brown, like you mentioned, comes onto your team, where like the public relation will work with them even closer than just like a full group kind of atmosphere? Like, are they working with guys a little more intently at any points?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that's going to be part of their job, because every like Antonio Brown coming into the Buccaneers now that I'm sure like their PR guy is talking to him every day. Like, look, man, just stay the course. Just keep saying this, or, don't be on Twitter throwing rants out, to just kind of keep our name good. As long as you do that, you'll be here, because I don't think he's putting up great numbers this year. So, they can kind of have a way to get rid of him if they want. And I think they even put that out there at the beginning when they signed him, like, hey, we just testing him out here. So that's and the bad part about it is I like the guy. I think he's funny at times, man. But sometimes you gotta keep yourself in check.
Right.
Yeah, I think with players, Grace and I did a seminar not too long ago talking about this, where they don't realize that the crew around them hype them up to the point where they could say anything inside the crew. But then when they get outside that crew and they start getting onto the Twitterverse or in social media, Instagram posts, they turn off sponsors. They turn off people that they might not want to turn off, because it could be a secondary income, or they can get in trouble where they're making a statement or a comment that affects the organization's sponsors and ticket sales and stuff, which then ultimately costs them either their job or an uncomfortable conversation with the organization that they then have to retract a statement or something, because they don't understand. It's cool to have the 40,000 followers on Twitter or whatever, but again, as soon as you hit send, it gets retweeted and then all of a sudden blown up to the point where 100, a million people see it within a matter of minutes. And I can only imagine that nightmare for you guys as PR staffs trying to protect the organization and the player at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's not easy, and it's a lot of meetings going into that about what can we do to kind of get this right, or get this at least to where it's not on ESPN, or hopefully not on like regular news, or I forgot the show with
the First Take.
Yeah, not First Take. I'm talking about like national news, like
Mav Sports Take, like this show. You don't want us talking
exactly.
About it.
You don't want to have that.
Because if we got it, you're in trouble, because all our listeners we're gonna blow it up.
Honestly, man, this is like one of the best shows that I've listened to, man. Like, this is I love listening to you guys, man. It's one of the good ones. And I do have my Mav Sports Take shirt too, though. Thanks, Dave, for sending that to me. I should have had it on, but
gear. You always gotta have gear.
Yeah,
No,
man.
and Ryan
Great.
carries this show. I'm just the anchor that weighs him down on this show. But so coming up in the process, we're going to see the coaching carousel already in full swing. How will the organizations, whether it be college or pro, start handling? Like right now, a big hot topic is Jim Harbaugh. Does he deserve an extension or does he deserve the street? Like, which way is it going to go with him at Michigan? So how does the organization start setting up the PR for these conversations one way or another?
Well, though, I mean, you got to look at like the two ways. If you want to have two different, press releases set up. If he goes or if he stays, So if he goes, then you guys say, we thank Jim Harbaugh for all his time here. He's a great asset. He got us to where we weren't before. Or if he stays, you're like, we're looking forward to what he's going to bring next year. It's just different ways you gotta be prepared for it. Other coaches that's on the thing. What happens is we'll just kind of do our research, see what are the highlights. We'll get a lot of their stats, like with Eric Bieniemy, for example. He has Patrick Mahomes just going crazy. So that's one of the things that we'll highlight if a team brings him on as their head coach, like how he brought the Chiefs, helped bring the Chiefs offense to like one of the greatest offenses that we've seen, So you just kind of, whatever coach it is down there, you have to do a lot of research. Just like as a scout, like you gotta do your research on these certain players. You gotta do your researches on coaches, GMs, everybody, and seeing who, what they have positive that they can bring to the organization, and that's what you're going to highlight.
Well, luckily at NFL Draft Bible, we do have scouting reports on coaches, on general managers. So we got all that ready for you. Keon, last thing we wanted to talk to you about, and I know we're a little over time with you. How did you get involved with Applied Silver? When I was talking about it, doing the intro a little bit, when we had Ian Williams on a few weeks ago, he talked about it a little in depth. Tell us about Applied Silver and what they're doing to better this world.
Oh, Applied Silver, man. I actually got a call from one of the guys that I work with, and he was like, "Hey, I'm working with this company, man, and they have a really good product, and I just think they need some help, kind of getting the word out, pushing the word." So I was like, okay, and this was coming from a guy that you kind of can't say no to, Everybody knows those guys, But so I took a look at it and I said, oh, okay, yeah, this is really good. And I think it's like new wave stuff, and everybody's going to have to need it. What it is, basically, they've created a product that kills staph and MRSA infection, and it's done through the laundry cycle, the rinse cycle of the laundry. So the teams wash their gear, and their gear becomes antimicrobial, and so it kills it, and it's residual, so it keeps killing once the Silver Clean gets on your clothes. So now if you go out and you're playing in a game, well, you don't have to worry about catching if you get a cut or something, you don't have to worry about it because it's on your clothes, or your uniform is already antimicrobial. And now it's also known to kill COVID. So a lot of teams are now, like, I think they have like 6 teams using it now. I think the 49ers, the Saints, the Texans, Jaguars, Lions, and Cowboys. So they're in like almost 20% of teams are using it right now. So it's something that I think is going to catch on and continue to move forward, man. And it's just such a great product, man. Like I said, once I first heard about it, I was like, I'm on board. So my job with them is basically kind of just get the word out. Like when Ian was on with you guys a couple of weeks ago, I'm pretty much the person that set that up. So, I'll call David call David up and say, hey, Dave, I think you need to talk to this guy. He'll talk sports with you, and he'll also tell you a little bit about what's going on with this product and how it's helped him and stuff like that. So that's another way that we can incorporate sports with Applied Silver and with PR.
Absolutely. I know Dr. David probably has big interest in this, right, David?
No, I think it's a great product, and obviously when Keon approached me, I think I was at a game at the Niners Stadium or something, and he pulled me aside and we started talking to one of the guys involved with this product, and I thought it was just a magical, almost a product because of this was before COVID, but as a person, I have had MRSA before, and then to know what a big impact that was on me, and then to hear what they could do and how it continues to kill even after it's out of the cycle and keep those I don't want to call them particles, but I mean, I don't know what they're called, disease particles off the uniforms and everything. It was a great product. And I think it is going to be something that ultimately goes international with its application from soccer teams to lacrosse teams, volleyball teams, everything. I think this could be a product that, ultimately could get a sponsorship with like the Olympics or something to have them, sponsor it and support it because it keeps people safe. And then once they told me COVID was also killed by this product, it just became even more valuable, I think, in the marketplace as far as keeping players safe and healthy. So I liked it a lot.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And here we are again, Mr. Keon Johnson. Keon, we appreciate all the time you have given us tonight. If you want to real quick, just plug your social media, any other things that people should be aware of where they can find you.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm just on Instagram at Keon Johnson 422, Facebook, Twitter, same thing in Keon Johnson. But one real quick story, how I ran back into Dave, man. This is a funny story, and I do have to tell it because I think he started off telling the story, but he didn't finish. So again, David and I graduated from De La Salle together back. I'm not afraid to say in '94. So
damn, put us on blast, bro.
I hadn't seen David in, man, I want to say almost like 10, 15 years or something like that. And I'm working a 49er game, and we're going to get a hot dog. I'm going to get a hot dog in line.
It's time, baby.
and he was in front of me. And so David is a little shorter than me. So
just a tad.
I had to look down. I was like, oh my goodness, I had to tap him. I was like, is that Dave? DJ Dave? And it's like, oh my goodness. So it was just crazy how we just ran back. And that was like the first time I'd seen him in years. And we see each other in the 49ers press box. So that was pretty awesome. And then after that, we kind of been in touch, for the last, 10 years, 12, somewhere around
10,
there.
12 years, something like that now. Yeah.
Awesome.
It was a lot older than me.
David, guess how old I was when 1994?
You were probably 2.
3. You were close.
3. Yeah. Okay.
Oh,
yeah.
All right.
Exactly.
I gotta go now.
Yeah. That's why when you started putting us on blast, man, I'm like, yo, you don't gotta be doing that.
I didn't realize Ryan was that young, man. I thought he was up there with us.
No, he's a puppy. I got a puppy over here now.
I'm getting there. David makes David feel better about himself being on with a young gun. This is how it works.
It does. Yeah. It makes me feel younger about myself. Absolutely.
Well, Keon, again, really appreciate you coming on tonight, man. We'll definitely have to have you come on again. Appreciate all the time and wishing you the best of health. I know out there it's a little shadier than it is here in New Jersey, so wishing you all the best.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you guys for having me, man. Again, love the show.
Yeah, thank you very much. We'll talk soon, Key.
All right, buddy.
Bye.
All right, well, David, we got a little glimpse into a different world, honestly, a world that I am not too well versed in. Quick takeaway from our conversation with Keon and maybe something that stuck with you.
Well, I got obviously emerged into this stuff is when I was in Miami with the Dolphins, and you would notice like any wrong step, any misstep or positive step. I mean, I think what gets blown up in the media more than anything is the missteps, right? That's what catches fire quick. Those are the matches that spark and just take off. But these PR teams are often small teams, and they got to manage like all the Twitter accounts for the coaches, all the Twitter accounts for the players. And when I say manage, they got to follow them. They got to know these people. They got to promote what's good about them and then like head off the firestorms before they take too much root. Like you heard him say, like, if a local reporter starts running with a report on something, they try to cut it off before it gets to ESPN or Mav Sports Take or all these things that go on now. So the organization doesn't, have to run interference on a bigger story than, stuff that we've highlighted on smaller stuff. So, I've gotten a peek into it. So when Key and I were talking the other day about it, I'm like, yeah, let's have you on the show. Let's bring this to the marketplace so people know that what's going on behind the scenes to help support the good stuff the team's doing, but also help manage, when people make mistakes and missteps and help damage control what's going on. And I think you saw that on a grand scale with the Colin Kaepernick thing, like the whole PR organizations, not only for each individual team, but the league had to, manage their initial misstep on that and then, start correcting their mistakes. And then you see things from an individual team by team basis. And there are times when it sparks, league-wide response when it came to like Mr. Sam's, Michael Sam's getting, drafted, and then a player from the Dolphins tweeted out the wrong thing, and that became a league-wide response. So I think it's a world that if people listen to this episode, they hopefully got a little peek into it and see how big of a world it really is, and how much it drives sponsorship dollars, not only for the player but for the team, for the organizations.
Yeah, and I think one thing that's really interesting about it is we asked them a little bit about mistakes and missteps that maybe teams take, or with teams they take with players, talking about the public relations team. For me, I was thinking like it has to be kind of like trial by error to a degree, right? Like I don't think that there's like no absolute answers to every single situation. So like for me, it's like they're putting their heads together, they're trying to find the best solution to what the situation, or the best course of action for a solution. But in the end, they might look back with hindsight and be like, that wasn't the right way, but maybe next time we'll have a better understanding of how to go about something. So it's like trial by error a ton.
It is, but it's such a high price stake. You don't want to make the error margin is really small. So I really, like I said, I've gotten to work with some of the best in the business, and Harvey Green down in Miami, and the guys up in New York. I mean, talking about New York media, having them to Pat and those guys up there at the Giants, and then going over to Mike Taylor, and then Will Kiss now at the Las Vegas Raiders, back then Oakland Raiders. I mean, you're talking about the Raiders, who was one of the most historic franchises in all sports, right? So, people watch what happened there. So the pressure that are on to get it right day in and day out is just immense.
Yeah, absolutely. And we want to transition to, we've been talking about a lot in recent weeks, coaches, vacancies that are already available, GM vacancies that are already available. There's going to be a high influx of new people and new positions all across the league. Before we do, I want to let everybody know out there. I want to let you all know this. And this broke my heart. David Turner texted me about an hour ago, and it's really cut me. So I want to go here before we get too serious. If anybody listens to me, if anybody follows NFL Draft Bible, if anybody follows myself, Rise and Draft, on Twitter, we are live, by the way, on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, on David's Facebook. I don't know who saw the Facebook. But if you follow me, you know that I have an affinity for Mr. Carson Strong, who is a 2021 draft-eligible quarterback out of the University of Nevada. Is he going to declare? I don't know. I actually have an interview with him tomorrow, though, on a side note. But I will say,
I think affinity is nice. I think you have more of a love affair with him.
Oh, man. I'm telling you, David. The kid's got all the goods. Very, very good. He's a redshirt sophomore, though. So will you declare? I don't know. Maybe not. Probably not. I don't know. I don't even want to say probably not, because I think if he declares, I really, truly believe this. And this is not inside source. This is just my eyes telling me what I see and the little I know about the kid as far as character-wise. I think he's going to be a first-round pick. I really do. I'm really there.
Murphy liked him, too. This morning on the show, they were talking, Joe and them were talking, and John Murphy really likes him, too. So,
all right. Well, David, let's take this into the film room real quick. You watched 3 games of him, from what you told me. What did you see? What did you like? What did you not like too much?
What I saw was a taller, angular quarterback that had a good short good quick release, short throwing motion, compact throwing motion, I should call it. I thought he had good arm talent, good arm strength, to deliver the ball, in time with his receivers, saw windows well, didn't really put ball in jeopardy of getting intercepted. The things that I was surprised not to see because of the way you and John talk about him, what I didn't see to me was the velocity for outside the number throws and sideline throws. So when I was watching him and the ball would be carrying outside, the velocity for the ball wasn't something that I was like, wow, that ball just jumped out of his hand and carried outside like on a way that you thought this guy had a rocket arm. And then I started watching his ball placement. So even between the numbers, the receivers were having to make adjustments to catch his ball. So either it was back shoulder stuff, it was underneath, low throws, high throws, a little bit behind the receiver type stuff. And I'm like, he's not making easy catches. He's not giving these receivers easy catches. They're having to work for him. So these are things, again, if he goes back, he puts a little weight on, because I think right now he's about 215. You can ask him in an interview, but I don't think he's a 225 or a 230 guy.
When I talked to him, he told me he was actually only 210 before the season. So I would say he's probably 210, 215-ish right now.
Yeah, and see, I think if he goes back, he can get to the 220, 225 mark, which in turn can help him with that velocity. And then if he works, the one thing I'm noticing, his footwork isn't strong. So like when you watch Drew Brees, his base is strong. He generates his power from his footwork, and the ball comes out of his hand, but he starts his throwing motion from his feet, right? With Strong, he's using his arm too much, and he's generating a lot of torque on that shoulder. So he needs to put some more strength into that shoulder and some better footwork into his training. So therefore, he can generate his power from his footwork and taking some tension off that arm. This way, again, that arm will last longer if he has better footwork when throwing the ball, and to go deeper into a career. And I think these are things that if he goes back for a year, he could correct. And then next year, he would even be deeper into the first round as arm talent. I think right now he would get selected, but if he only weighs in at like, say, 210 and he plays naturally at 205, that's going to be a quarterback that I mean, you just don't see that body frame really be impactful in the NFL. You don't.
David, he's coming, man. Carson Strong's coming, baby. Best deep ball thrower in college football.
And I disagree with that.
But do you see? Oh, man, he puts some balls out there, man. Easy. He's flat-footed, and I agree. His footwork is nowhere near where it needs to be. But I'm looking just raw talent there. His feet are not set. He's flicking it. It's just upper body. And, man, he's putting it out there 55
but
plus.
Here's the thing.
Easy.
That's the thing where coaches get pissed at us scouts, okay? Because we're like, here's a raw bowl of talent. Go develop it, coach. And it's like, the reality is you want to give your coach the best product available, And right now, this is where I'll disagree with you and John. Like a Trask, who I'm in love with his footwork. He doesn't have the strength. He does not have the arm strength that Strong has, okay? But a guy like Trask has better mechanical motion. He has a better lower body mechanics. He absolutely delivers ball in the right position for his receivers to gain yards after catch. I mean, he throws great touch passes. This is a complete product where if you hand your coach this guy, you might not have a guy that has a rocket arm, but your receivers are going to love the ball coming from Trask because it's going to be right in the right position every time, and they're going to give him an opportunity to run after the catch and make plays with their feet. And then again, when you're down by the end zones and you're throwing those touch passes, or those back shoulder or those out in front things, it's on a dime. Like Trask just throws great balls. And I know we're way different on this, but I'm one that I've sat in enough rooms, and John has sat in enough rooms too. We've had the opportunity to hear coaches be like, man, this kid's got all the talent to get me fired. because, he's got all this talent, but if I don't develop it and I don't get it out of him, I'm going to be the one on the street getting fired. And you never want to put your coach in that situation. That's why, for me, again, a guy like Strong, he can come out. Someone can get enamored with him. He's going to sit behind somebody 1 or 2 years. He can wind up be like an Aaron Rodgers. Again, Aaron Rodgers was way better than the Strong kid, but he sat behind Brett Favre for 2 years until they gave him the keys to the car, right? He could wind up being that guy, developing for a couple years before he gets to the keys to the car. Or he can go back to school, develop it on his own, and next year when he gets drafted, he'll be the guy, because then he'll be ready, because he'll have worked on the things he needs to work on, which is footwork, getting stronger in the weight room, working on it, getting his weight up, and then boom, you're the guy come next year. Or you're going to sit behind somebody coming into the league, because I don't think anybody who needs a day one starter is going to say, Strong, you're my day one starter. I don't see that.
I get that. I completely get that. And this is why I love the evaluation, the scouting process, because two people see things very differently. John saw it, I think, similar to me. I don't think he was as enamored as I am from what I heard from him this morning on the show. But I think that he is a little further, obviously, to my side than yours. The one thing I'll ask you, and I'm generally curious about your opinion on this, right? So, I don't even disagree with you. I think that Kyle Trask today is more suitable to go into an NFL locker room and play football than Carson Strong. My question is, people are talking now about maybe Kyle Trask in the first round. I'm telling you right now, I think that Carson Strong could be a first-round pick. My general question to you is, when you're picking in the first round, you're taking a quarterback, aren't you swinging for the fences rather than trying to hit a single or a double with a guy like Trask? Because yes, is Trask's floor, quote unquote, higher than Carson Strong's? Absolutely, but I would argue that Carson Strong's ceiling is much higher than a guy like Kyle Trask's.
It depends. Again, it depends on your quarterback current situation. If I'm a team like the Falcons or Detroit Lions, where I have a quarterback for the next 2 years at least, both Stafford and Ryan, great. I think they could be very good quarterbacks for another 2 to 3 years, right? I think we're both on that. So then you have a guy like Strong, you take in the first round and you let him sit behind those guys while he develops, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Great situation. If I'm a team like, say, the Washington football team, where Haskins is not your guy, you like a guy like that you have in Alex Smith, a guy like Trask fits your mold better than other people in the draft that you'll see at where you're going to be drafting, because you're not going to be in the Fields run. You're not going to be in the Lawrence run. So you're going to be sitting in the next group. So to me, a guy like Trask would walk into fit with that organization and what they're looking for better than a Strong. Because again, if Alex Smith goes down with an injury next year, or at the end of this year, for some reason, whatever, it says, I'm done. I want to just prove I can come back and that's it, which I don't see for Alex. That's just not who he is. But if he goes down next year with an injury, you can go legitimately bring Trask in and be comfortable playing with him next year. So when you're drafting and you're looking at organizations and you're looking at where they're drafting in the first round, I think that's going to play into decision-making on who takes them and what they're looking for, what they want,
Well, no, we're on the same page with that, because in my recent, well, not recent, it was a few weeks ago now, my mock draft with NFL Draft Bible, I did have Carson Strong going in the first round, but I think it was at the time 26th overall selection, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I had him going under Tom Brady potentially for a year. Bruce Arians is a vertical passing offense connoisseur. I felt like that fit with a guy like Carson Strong, and that offense sitting behind Brady for maybe a year to two would be a very good situation for him potentially.
But that organization's already made a commitment to getting the former first pick from the Cardinals over there, and he's sitting there.
Squad. He's on the practice
but
squad.
I'm saying they made the commitment to him already, so he's already there. I would think putting a weapon for Tom and putting offensive line better together for that, for that team would make better sense for a first round pick if Brady's going to stay there, and Arians is going to be the coach there. and they're going to try to make that marriage work, it's going to be better to do that than pick a guy for down the line. You see what I'm saying?
No, I get it. And I think there's a lot of different ways that you can go about the conversation and the route that they could potentially take. And I just, at that point in the draft, I didn't love what the offensive tackles were left on the board. And I was just, in my mind, I was like, Brady has maybe 1 year? Because I know he's defying father time right now.
He does not look that good this year. Let's just be honest. He does not look like the old Tom Brady. His arm strength is way down.
I mean, but it shouldn't, right? I mean, he's 43 years old. He's almost as old as you. Could you play in the NFL?
I'm looking pretty good for 45 now. Relax over there.
You're in the best shape of your life, almost, right? So
almost.
You're doing great, man. You're doing absolutely great. I'm just saying, Tom Brady's doing pretty well for his age. He's kind of defying a lot of odds, even if he's not playing incredibly well. He's still doing pretty well. Like, let's be honest. When you kind of the context.
He is, and if they add a good running back for him and they add some offensive line, Tom Brady will be fine. And he has more drop passes from running backs out of the backfield than I think anybody else at this point. So
it's bad.
We're getting away from topic as we normally do, so let's get back to where we were headed before.
Okay, back to where we were heading was we're going to talk about the interview process because a lot of general manager positions, a lot of head coach positions are going to be open and available. And we want to talk about the handling of the interview process and why it's broken. And we're going to talk about a few different reasons why this interview process is broken. First, and David, I didn't even know much about this one. No hiring freeze for 14 days after the season ends. Give us a little context on this one, David. 14 days after the season.
This is one that I'm really in a big support for. Because, and again, I think it should go for college and pro sports. I mean, right now, you already saw the University of South Carolina hiring Beamer, the son of the great coach from Larry was a Beamer from VTech. And, it was the day after the season ended for South Carolina. So I'm just like, how can any kind of minority candidate or candidates that are deserving of interviews be brought in, be zoomed in? How can you actually say you've digested every possible candidate if you're rushing to worry about recruiting, you're rushing to worry about getting the right assistant coaches, you're rushing and worrying about, what your opponent is doing in order to be ready for their season. So if you invoke a hiring freeze to college football and NFL football for 14 days past or after the regular season is over, now you're not losing ground. Nobody's gaining ground on you. And all the deserving candidates have an opportunity to interview for the jobs that are open and available. And this way, everybody can get a fair shake and even the playing field right there just by having a hiring freeze. Just a 14-day hiring freeze. And let's just talk NFL. The NFL season has 4 weeks to go. At the conclusion of that, you can fire anybody you want. You can say, we're moving on from these people. Pack your stuff. You ain't got to go home, but you got to get out of here, right? And But you just cannot hire anybody for 14 days. That puts 2 weeks of playoffs in the books. So anybody who's in those first 2 weeks can then go interview. It gives you a chance to have 1 or even 2 rounds of interviews. So if you want to interview 5 people the first week of the postseason, interview them. You want to bring 2 back for the second round of interview, you have the time now to do it. And there's no rush because you cannot hire an assistant coach. You cannot hire a general manager, nobody for 14 days.
My question is, we see a lot of organizations let go of those positions at different spots in the season. And while it might not be official interviews, right? Like, people talk during the season after people are let go. Is it 100% equitable to teams that are in maybe different situations during the season, if that makes sense?
I think by keeping it an absolute solid thing that you cannot hire for 2 weeks after the season, then it allows the owners, the GMs, whoever the decision makers are, to be able to run the process of evaluating your current staff all the way through. So again, you don't have to, as we call it, Black Monday, right? The Sunday games happen, and then Black Monday people walk in and they get their pink slip. You don't have to worry about that. The owners can walk in. Maybe they're this way. They're not making an emotional decision. Monday, Tuesday comes to be. They settle down. They're like, okay, I'm gonna now with a cooler head. This is the right decision. I'm gonna make it. Let's go. And again, in situations where like the Falcons are gonna be hiring a GM and a coach.
Mm-hmm.
You might say, okay, if you're doing a double hire, you can hire your GM first 7 days after the season's over, and then you can hire your head coach 14 days after the season. If that's the model you want to go for, because you're doing a double hire, right?
Mm-hmm.
I like that because obviously I'm a GM top organization type person. I'm not a coach top. Anybody who's a coach top, they're like, well, what if I want to hire my coach and then let them hire the GM? Should I be able to hire a coach first? No, I'm saying hire your GM first, then you hire your coach. But that's my model. That's the way I'm going to stick to it. And again, there's a hiring freeze. I think any kind of hiring freeze for 7 to 14 days after gives everybody who's a qualified candidate an opportunity to interview. And the more we get these people qualified interviews, then they have a chance to make an impression and then get a job. Right now, everybody's rushing to decision making so they can hire the best coaching staff, so they can hire the best personnel people. It's so much of a rush, it becomes a cluster. And then all of a sudden we get these quote unquote minority interviews that always make people mad. They're like, oh, they're just interviewing that person to get by the requirement and move on. And again, if they weren't rushed to make a decision, maybe they give those quality minority candidates more time to interview. You might see more women interviewed for positions. You might see more minorities interviewed for positions. It might not just be one guy and done. It could be 2 or 3 guys because there's no rush to decision. That's my whole point with the 14-day freeze, because I want a lack of rush to decision. I want to take that pressure away from owners so they're not like, if I don't make this decision, oh no, then this guy's going to make it and then we're going to be behind them and all that stuff. I think that's what they were trying to do with this whole draft pick compensational thing, was trying to entice people to, interview and hire that way. But I think that's it, honest to God. It's like John brought up this morning on the morning show. There's a good qualified assistant GM for one of the NFC South's team. Now, if they go hire that guy away from the other team, it's like giving an opponent 2 third-round picks, by hiring that guy away. And it's like, wow, I don't want to give my opponent an extra third-round pick by hiring the guy I want to bring over here.
Sure.
Like that's now it's part of the strategy. So that's keeping somebody out of a job because you don't want them to have to gain on you. Well, how about a hiring freeze? Let's entice everybody with time. Give everybody time to do their job.
Yeah. And you mentioned kind of the next point we want to talk about a little bit with hiring of minorities. And I always felt like this, David, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, because I always try to be very empathetic. I try to put myself in people's shoes. It's not easy all the time, right? And I always tell the students that I have, I really am trying to understand 100% what you're feeling, but unfortunately you can never completely feel that way. But I'm just thinking the rule, right? Where you have to interview a minority assistant for head coaching positions, all this type of stuff. For me, I'm thinking if I was that coach who was a minority and was going up for a position, in my mind, I'm thinking I'm only here because this rule is in place, because they have to allow me to have this interview. I'm the token person that they chose to interview for this. And I've always really pushed back against just that thought process in general.
Well, I have plenty of friends who are minorities that are in the game, in the scouting world, in the coaching world, and every single one of them, down to a man, and said, I don't want to get the job just because
Right.
I'm a minority. They want to
Sure.
get it because I'm the best qualified candidate.
Mhm.
And to me, the only way you can, like a draft board, when you're talking best quarterbacks, right? It's their
Yep.
traits.
Carson Strong. Sure. Good.
Who's terrible? All right, no, he's not terrible. I'm just messing with you because
it's on the podcast.
because I get tired of you love fest. But let's say when you're comparing quarterbacks, you're going to talk about their traits and do they fit my system and do they come from a system that's going to make it easily transferable from college to pros and this and that, right? So if you have, what do we always say, Ryan? You do your homework. You have to do your homework. You have to write your scouting report. You have to talk to the people on campus about them. It takes time. So to encourage more minority interviews, to me, you have to encourage giving the owners more time to do their homework, to do their research. They talk about, or they hire these search firms all the time, and they trust the search firm to do their job. But a lot of times these search firms literally talk to some agents that represent some guys, and they take that and they write it up, make it look pretty in a little dossier, and they give it to the owner. But the owner himself has not, they run other businesses. They got a lot of things going on. They don't have the time to really dive into every candidate, or I don't know how you hire Matt Patricia, to be your coach. Being honest about it, it's like, this guy.
Pencil. He has a nice pencil, a nice sheet that he doesn't write on.
Yeah, he's just, but I'm just saying, like, he's a guy that, is a dictator. Like you've heard all week, all the players around there is like, yeah, when the dictator's gone, we can now have fun. We can loosen up and, be ourselves again and enjoy football and play a game. So if you don't have the time to do the homework, then you need to give them time to do the homework. And I'm going to beat that all the time, because I truly think by giving owners more time to interview minority candidates, not just the one to get by the rule, but 2 and 3, giving them exposure to these to qualified candidates, no matter what the color of their skin is, you'll find that they wind up hiring the right people for the right jobs. And there are great minority candidates right now that are waiting for the GM job. Marty Mayhew. Think about it. Marty Mayhew, he's out in San Francisco. He's only 55 years old. He's been a GM before. Jerry Reese, 2 Super Bowl rings sitting on his fingers. Ready, willing to be able to do it. Guys like Ray Farmer, Eric Stokes. What's Lake's for? Lake Dawson. Who's up at Buffalo, who's part of the, that brain trust up in Buffalo that's building this great team up there. You got Morocco Brown at the Colts. I'm just sitting here off the top of my head. I don't have a list, people, not in front of me, but these are great minority candidates that if the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Atlanta Falcons, Houston Texans, and other places that have GM jobs open right now have time to interview 2 or 3 of them, on top of having time to interview the guys like Ed Dodds, George Payton, Trent Krishner, Scott Fitterer, these other guys that are qualified candidates. If you give the owners time to interview 5, 6, 7 people, you'll find out less mistakes are being made. There's, again, great guys on the street like John Dorsey sitting there waiting for a second opportunity. But why does he deserve a second opportunity over Jerry Reese? Jerry's got 2 Super Bowl rings. So
David, you need to make your own hiring committee. You know them all, man. Hire David Turner to make that decision. Then he can hire himself as the director of player personnel, right?
No, shoot. I would honestly love to be a part of a committee to help a team put qualified candidates in a list and get them interviewing. Because, again, I've been in the trenches with these guys for 18 years. I know them inside and out. I know the kind of work ethics they have and character they have. It's not even a question. If I could put the right list together, I would. I've already put it out on Twitter several times for people to look. It's free. They don't even need to pay me for it. They just go to Mav's Twitter and find it.
Mav _sports. He's already solved.
Yeah.
The the world's problems, and people just need to take a look. Go check out Mav_sports. That's all you need to do. One thing we wanted to talk about, the rounds of interviews during this process. Obviously, you're elongating this interview process to make this the most comprehensive search to find the correct candidates. How many rounds are too much? How many rounds aren't enough? What in the ideal world is this actual hiring process looking like through the interviews?
When I hear of the regular business world do hiring, okay, for positions, it's often a 3-round system. They usually bring in a big pool, then they consolidate that for the second round, and then they bring in the head-to-head people, whoever's in position for that third round. I think if you go to any organization outside of sports and they're doing director level positions or C-level positions, it's often 3 rounds of interviewing to get a job. And that's what I would love to see sports go to. I think people, again, are too fast to rush these things, and they typically need to slow it down, slow the process down. I would love to have the time to do 3 rounds of interviewing so you can have a big pool of 7 to 10 interviews for your head coaching job, 7 to 10 interviews for your GM job, 7 to 10 interviews for your offensive coordinator job. What's the big deal? It's only lack of time. That's the only thing that's keeping them from doing this. So, if you can have that and then have a second round where you have a pool of 5 and then bring it down to head-to-head competition, bring them in for that final. This is, we're going to make our decisions between these 2 people. I think it would be great to see that in sports. I think the candidates would be appreciative of actually earning the job at that point because they know they've gone through 3 rounds to get them to earn the spot. So I see 3 rounds being ultimately the way, but only if there's enough time to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that one thing that would solve a little bit, because I think we see this so much, retreads. Retreads drive me crazy, especially in the coaching world. Some of these guys, man, I'm just like, how do they keep getting jobs? Because like you're saying, they're rushing to decisions and not being comprehensive with their search. So good candidates are getting pushed to the side. And hey, maybe next year, friend, maybe next year when a team finally wises up and goes, hey, maybe we need to be a little more in depth with this, and we need to find the right person, and on opposed to the known commodity, which might not be that great of a commodity to start with.
Right, and the retreads, like I said, sometimes are deserving of a second chance, but
sure.
But again, you got I'm going to take the coaches in particular here. You have certain coaches they're on their 4th or 5th chances.
It's crazy.
And there's great young coaches, and there's some great old coordinators that have never gotten their chance. They've been passed over, and now everybody's looking for the next McVay when there's some great coordinators out there that have never gotten a chance, and they're just older. It's not their fault. They just never been part of the hiring cycle. So, again, then you almost get them in a defeatist mentality of, well, it's never going to happen for me, so I'm going to just stay here, be a coordinator, and they stop trying, which, again, is terrible because these people have great passion for a game. They should be encouraged to always, achieve the highest marks that they want and go for it. But, yeah, retreads. And I want to name somebody right now personally. I want to say it, but I'm not going to say it.
Do it.
There's no reason why Lane Kiffin is the head coach of Ole Miss. Like, there really isn't. I mean, it's just like, come on, Lane. You've had every job known to man, and you've gotten fired from them all. And, it's just absolutely like, what makes Lane Kiffin worthy of being an Ole Miss head coach? Like, literally.
His dad's Monty Kiffin, one of the best defense coordinators ever.
That's it. But there are some great young coordinators and some older coaches that belong in the conversation, but they went with name recognition. They went with a guy who, again, I don't know how they got him, but he failed at every position he's been in. And yeah, he can scheme up some great stuff. But, I mean, as far as, like, doing the job correctly, I just don't see it. Even when he was handing that poor kid the Senior Bowl invite the other day, it was just man, here's your invite. And there was like, here's a moment for a kid, and you kind of totally just crapped on it.
I know I was about to say you shit on it, really. I mean, I texted you about that when it happened, right? Or we talked about it. I forget what.
Yeah, we talked about it, and I was just like, man, you stole that from the kid. It was a moment for him and his family to be, and you kind of just were like, here you go.
Especially in the social media world where you keep seeing these coaches doing these awesome gestures to these kids to accept these invites and stuff, right? Like stopping practice, going on these rants of like how great this kid is, presenting it to him, flashing it on the scoreboard. Like you see all these awesome gestures. And then, during an interview, he just walks and he's just like, here you go. I'm just like, man, that it was cringeworthy for a second for me too, because I just felt really bad for Royce Newman, who was the offensive tackle that's going to the Senior Bowl. And what a great moment for him. But like, man, like you couldn't have at least put on a face there and just been like, because like you could have walked in that room and been like, excuse me, I don't mean to intrude on you guys doing your job, but I would like to announce that due to his hard work for the last 5 years in our program and what he's done here and what he has given to me as a first-year head coach in the SEC, I would like to announce that Royce Newman has been selected to the Senior Bowl. Was that too hard for Lane? Was that too hard, David? I don't think that was asking too much, especially for a kid, again, like Royce Newman, who has been through the tough times, been through the worst of it with the Matt Luke years for a couple of years, went through the storm. Because in this era, you see a lot of players now, they're just like, tough times, or I'm going to transfer. Tough times, I'm going to hit the transfer portal. Like, I'm good. He steered the ship. And while Ole Miss is not a great football team still, in the first year of Lane Kiffin, the offense is taking great steps forward, and it looks really good. And he's one of the reasons why. Given that kid his moments, he deserved a whole lot more than that. And again, I'm not trying to shit on Lane Kiffin here because I don't have anything against Lane Kiffin. I've never met Lane Kiffin. All I'm saying is, man, like in that moment, that was not a good look. And I would have liked for him to at least do something where it was like, yes, I am celebrating the career of Royce Newman, what he has accomplished here at Ole Miss.
Right. Showing some loyalty to a player that was loyal and contributed to the program, even though it's your first year, he might not have contributed to your success. He contributed to the program's success. Give it and be respectful. And that's what I'm saying. Like, a good coach, a good leader, a good person does that. Lane,
here
you go. So, anyways, I know we're wrapping up. We got to get to the mailbag.
We have to get to the mailbag before we do. How can coaching help you separate yourself from our competition in the interview process? Well, you are willing to go to training facility to run faster than your opponents, but are you willing to get coached up to be a better interview when you're against your competition? Can you handle the tough questions about your past? Are you confident you can answer the decision makers' questions without running on and on? Well, if you're not all set, then think about hiring an expert coach to get you to be above the other athletes in the 2021 NFL Draft. Mav Sports Consulting is your expert coach to get you ready to tackle this offseason process ahead of your competition. Visit mavericksportsconsulting.com for more information. Dave, we want to get to mailbags real quick scouting tips. We're going to start giving these guys some tips, especially if they're listening to us. They have aspirations, being in the front office, being in the scouting department, being an independent scouting service, like whatever their dreams are in this field, a coach, whatever it is, watching film. Quick tip. I'll start off with one. You give me one, and then we'll move into the mailbag. I am a huge believer in watching film chronologically. Huge believer in. I want to watch, if I'm watching 3 games, I'm watching one at the beginning of the season, one in the middle, one at the end. I want to see progression throughout a season. Obviously, we're watching film. We're watching enough film to get an astute opinion, an in-depth opinion, but I want to make sure that I'm watching it in order so that I see, hey, maybe he started off a little rocky, righted his ship. That might show me, hey, he's got something to him. He's a tough kid. He fought through adversity. Maybe he was just rock solid all the way through, and that checks all those boxes type of thing. He didn't compete at the highest level near the end of the season that he was doing earlier in the season. What's the reason for that? Just a little more in-depth, comprehensive look chronologically. Your scouting tip for the night.
My scouting tip for the night is don't enter into a film session with bias. Like something that Gettleman taught me early in my career is whatever your grading scale is, for him, it would be a 6.6. All players start as a 6.6, which is a solid starter. And let them play themselves up or down in or out of that role. So they either solidify being a solid starter for you through their play and their work, or they work themselves out of it, or they work themselves up even further. So it's not a situation where you're walking into the room because you heard on the scouting trail, you read on Twitter this, you know, his bio's not that, impressive. Definitely walk into any film session, sit down with the remote in your hand, thinking whomever you're gonna look at right now is a solid starter, and then let them play themselves out of that role in your head. This way you don't walk into the room trying to make them fit whatever you've heard on the street, whatever the bio reads like. You walk into the film room as best you can with any unbiased opinion to give this kid every chance they have to make your team.
That's a great tip, and I like to do that too, where it's like I call it like a blind viewing, right? Like I just want to go right in. I don't want to see box scores. I don't want to hear people's chatter, what people are saying about him in the media. Like I just want to go in and take a look. Great scouting tip. We have 3 questions tonight in the mailbag that we have selected. Shout out to everybody that put the questions in the mailbag. I'm going to start this first one off because it's a very 2021 NFL draft centric. I know David started getting into some film, but he's not getting in until a little closer to the season, which I don't blame him because I don't know who's actually declaring this year. It's kind of like
I was like, let me just wait and see what the list look like, and then I'll start digesting them.
I know. We're trying to get ahead of the curve, and I just feel like we're probably getting evaluations for kids that might end up going back. But, hey, we'll see what happens. First question from Jack_Borowski. Where do you see Baron Browning, linebacker from Ohio State, and Eric Stokes, cornerback from Georgia, going in the draft? Both are great athletes with elite speed and have been impressive on tape this season. Interested to know your thoughts on both and if you think either can go round 1. Let me start with Stokes because I've talked about him pretty in-depth in the past. I absolutely do think that Eric Stokes can go in the first round. I think that he is 6 foot plus. I think he's going to run in the 4.3s potentially. He's very athletic. He's sticky in coverage. He's tougher than you think. He's not afraid of contact. He'll come up. I think that he brings a versatility in coverage too. I don't think he's a scheme-specific corner. I think he can do things in zone. I think he can do stuff in off man. I think he can play some press man at times as well. I think there's a good variety to what versatility he can bring to the back end. So I absolutely do think that Eric Stokes can play. 2019, I thought his tape was good, and I was very impressed. And I was wondering why people weren't talking about him more. It was because the box score scouting was a little in effect. He didn't have any interceptions in 2019, even though he was really good, and his ball skills are actually very good. And this year he has 3 interceptions. Now people are starting to throw him in the conversation, which they should because he's very good. So, yes, Eric Stokes is one, absolutely. Baron Browning, I'm going to be honest, Jack. I haven't watched a ton of him in 2020, only in passing, right? Like just watching the games on TV. So I don't have a thorough, in-depth evaluation of him this season. I will say you see in 2019 film speaking, he kind of mixed in a lot because they still have Malik Harrison. They have Pete Werner. They have Tuff Borland still on the team. So he got lost a little bit in the shuffle and was kind of mitigated to a backup role to a high degree, despite being a junior. He's very athletic. You can see it quite easily. He has a nice body. He's super explosive getting downhill. I question instincts at times. I know he's playing in a different position this year than he was last year, so we'll see what the evaluation brings. But I was a little lower on Baron Browning. I saw the athlete. I see the upside. For linebacker, I'm very picky with linebackers too, because it's a position I played, so I will be the first to say that. Did not love his eyes, didn't think he was very instinctive, and I thought that he really had tough time transitioning from trigger, post-trigger, to his landmark and coverage. So a little off-putting, especially in a passing league now. So Baron Browning, upside, we'll see what 2020 brings. Wasn't a huge fan of his 2019 film. 2 questions that we have left. Going to Mr. Mark Jarvis, who shows at What's on Draft NFL, who asks us a question every week. Weirdest body type that each of you can remember scouting? Question brought to you by a 5'10", 290 pounds Houston defensive tackle I saw yesterday. So, David, is there somebody that sticks out to you as the weirdest body type that you scouted?
Well, I'm going to talk about a successful story. It was probably the worst body I've ever seen in my life, but he played at the NFL level. Kevin Booth. So Kevin Booth, coming out of Cornell, had the worst body type. Like, he was just a guy that looked underdeveloped, I'm being frank because it's us. He had man boobs and they were very loose when he was running. Like you could go back and watch him run. They were flapping everywhere, and you were like, man, how is this guy gonna be successful? And you know what? He did it at a very high level for a very good long period of time. And now he's working I believe he's at the NFL league office doing some stuff. I mean, he's a very smart man. That was never in question. He went to Cornell, majored in hotel management, which is like the top program for that in the world. So, but I mean, his body type was like, I don't know what kind of player this is going to be. And then you go watch him play, and he was physical. He was actually athletic. He could move. He could hit moving targets when he pulled and trapped and did all that stuff. He was a guard that ultimately moved, and then he wound up, I think, finishing his career at center at the Giants for a while. So, it was a body type that I was like, But then I watched him play, and I was like, ooh, here we go. He might not look like Tarzan, but he sure does play like him. So,
well, we apologize, Kevin, for shape
I know,
shaming.
I scouted him. I know him, but I'm being honest with him. I know him. I'm just being honest with him. I think he would say he understands. He's not a dog.
I'm sure that he would definitely understand. A couple guys that popped into my head. One guy I actually just interviewed that we should have an interview out with him pretty soon. I didn't want to interview him just because he was a super interesting person. That's Josephus Smith, who's a defensive tackle at Austin P. We know that most teams lie about the measurables on rosters. So he's listed at 5'9", 285 pounds. I am willing to bet that he is 5'8", probably closer to 300 pounds. My man is dense. He is a ball. I love it, man. Another guy in the opposite spectrum, Jojo Natsun, that was a punt returner for the he went to Utah State, and then he was with the Rams for a while, and now he's with another team. I think he is, and David, here, this is not a typo, 5'7", 152 pounds, playing in the NFL, which is a very, very small man, probably the smallest guy I can remember listed. I can remember, I don't know, to my recollection, I can't remember anybody smaller than that. So a couple guys, different body types, very odd, both in their own right. Last question from FCS Nation Radio 1. That is Mr. Kevin from FCS Nation Radio. Shout out to you, Kevin. Surprised at all, kids in the portal with everyone getting an extra year of eligibility. So to paint the picture again, that extra year of eligibility that was granted to everyone, a very high number of transfers, specifically a lot of FCS kids that have decided to try to transfer up. It seems like kind of like an impulse decision to a degree. David, are you surprised? Because I'll say I'm not surprised. I think kids, I'm going to be very nice here, but I think kids aren't, they don't take themselves out of the situation and look at the full scope of their decisions sometimes. They don't have the proper support system to make those correct decisions. So I think a lot of this is impulsivity to a degree. So I think there's just some nearsightedness to some of these decisions.
I'm going to go out and say there's selfishness to these decisions and lack of actually understanding the world we're living in. Like we talked about with the recruiters just a few weeks ago with James Kirkland and Quinton Ganther, there's not a lot of scholarships to hand out, kids. There's not a lot. They're not getting a lot back. People aren't graduating at the rate that they did. So even a Utah that might have graduated 12 guys last year, they might only be graduating 6, and they can't just give you a scholarship because you want one. And, they got to think about the program and the growth. So they're going to go get the best talent available. And that was probably going to be a young kid. They're not just going to sell their soul and bring you in for 1 year, let you perform for a year, and then you're gone. And now they got to fill that scholarship with somebody else. So, I think all these kids that are entering the portal thinking it's a normal year are delusional. Aren't thinking through the whole process, haven't listened to our podcast enough, because
Right.
The reality is the likelihood of scholarships being available aren't going to be there this year. Where there'll be a mass exodus of players next year that might correct the system, there could be. But this year, It's not going to be it. And again, unless this vaccine gets distributed to the whole society by August of next year, and we have a normal fall, it's going to be hard to be corrected even next year. So, if you're entering these portals for better situations, I'm going to give you a saying. Grow in the ground you're rooted in now.
Yeah.
Learn to get better where you're at in the situation you are now. Don't go looking for new soil and then say, this is what I need to get better. Find the situation you are currently in, a program that's giving you a scholarship that has put time into you, even if it's not as much time as you think you deserve, even if it's not the opportunity you think you deserve. Grow in that opportunity, because when you're searching for the new opportunity this year, you're going to find very little takers. And then what did you do? You can't go back, right? You can't go back to the opportunity you just gave up. So where are you going to end up? If you find no takers in this portal, where are you going to end up, kids?
I mean, and like, it's very simple, like supply and demand. Like, there's limited scholarships to begin with, and then there's hundreds of players in the portal now. So it's like, what I mean, you're competing.
Well, again,
with so
if you're
people.
taking over a Vandy, when Vanderbilt hires their coach, right, taking on Vandy, you might need some players, but getting into Vandy ain't the easiest thing in the world. So it's not like you can just go to the portal and just pick all the best players from the portal and come in, because Vandy ain't going to let you in. So again, kids, you got to learn. Don't think with your emotion. Don't be an emotional buyer and seller. Look at the market and really think about the market. And this year, the market is so bad for you guys. Get your asses out of the portal. Go back. Talk to the coaches. Solve the problems at your current situations. Get better there. Grow and do your best at those situations, because what you're looking for isn't there, man. It's just not going to be there this year.
I think there's some reality that needs to be like put into some of these kids too, because like this isn't even specifically just for transfer portal stuff, right? Because like I'm seeing a lot of kids that are opting out now and declaring. And I'll be very honest, like I saw a couple yesterday where I was like, I don't know who you are, and that's not good, because I work for an independent scouting service that has a database that has like 2,600 players in it, and I don't know who you are. I don't know who you are.
And that's why we push on this show all the time to hire us, let us divide, for $250. $250. We can tell you if you're making a mistake. You can give us your film for $250. We will tell you yay or nay, unbiased decision. We have no fight in it. We have no dog in this game, right? It's just us telling you if you should come out or not for $250. But people don't do it. They say, oh, no, I got all these people around me. They're not a scout. They've never scouted, and they've never sat in the seats I've sat in. Just like you, Ryan. You can tell them. They can contact you on Twitter. Do you know me? Nope. Well, then maybe you shouldn't come out, because the people around you don't know any better either.
Right. And I mean, I'm very honest with any player that hits me up, right? Like, I'll give you my general thoughts. Like, I don't care about that. Like, I'll give you my general thoughts. But like the first thing that I always talk about is like support system, advisory board. Like get the advisory. Go. It's I don't understand why they don't take advantage of every resource. There are some good resources that are laid in front of them. If you submit to the advisory and they say you need to go back to school, go back to school, man. It's not that hard. They're not, like you said, you have an unbiased perspective. You have no say. Like, it's not like you're taking a percentage out of their pay because you did a scout report for them. Like, it's a flat rate and then they're out of your life. You know what I'm saying? So like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. It's very frustrating. On a good note, as we wrap up the show, Jimmy Smith, former wide receiver of the Jacksonville Jaguars, just followed me on Twitter. So there's that. That was pretty cool. That was a cool little moment.
Back to Ryan.
I didn't say that. You said that.
No. Usually all roads back to Notre Dame. That's true.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm wearing the Notre Dame shirt, as always. So
as always.
We always need to boast here. We need to boast here. I'll have the Mav Sports gear on next week for you, David. As we're wrapping up here, we want to thank you all. If you have followed with us this whole episode, we thank you so much. Make sure to follow myself at Rise and Draft on Twitter, @Mav_sports for Mr. David Turner. We'll be back with Friday Night Scout School this week to talk college scouting department. Make sure you like, share, and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And hey, we would appreciate very much a review. Go to Apple Podcasts, give us a review, give us that 5 stars. Even if you didn't like it that much, just give us the 5 stars, give us the review. Thank you all so much. As always, we'll be back with you guys next Tuesday night live at Rise and Draft for the next edition of Mav Sports Take. See you all again next week.